All right, you scabrous dogs. You've slogged through everything Barotrauma has to offer. Pre-release. You've played on subs. You've built subs. You've destroyed this game to its core and back. Or you're new and just starting out. Excuse me, that's coffee there. And wondering, what are these things called submarines in Barotrauma? And how are they made? Or if you're a salty sea dog that has a favorite submarine but wants to fix just that one thing, well, I'll tell you, there's a way to do it. The Submarine Editor is accessible to anyone with the game. Now, there are a number of elements that require understanding. Knowledge and information are the greatest tools of the deep. So, when building your submarine, it is best to consider what is the most important part of your sub. Where do you start? Well, the thing you start with is, what is a submarine in the world of Barotrauma? Now, this button here is to toggle visibility of all of the things. Whether you load a pre-made submarine or are building a new one like so, you'll need to be able to see things. All of the things. The first part you'll want is a hull. The size and shape of this hull is the actual interior dimensions and room sizes of your submarine. These make up the individual compartments and rooms of your submarine. We are going to go through the process of building out a small series of rooms. Now, I would strongly recommend that when using hulls, you leave them snapped to grid, because you can get a number of interesting and or difficult to comprehend errors and bugs from overlapping or underlapping in areas. Because anywhere that is not inside this area is technically outside the submarine. So there, we have two compartments. Let's go ahead and grab a third. Copy and paste works in the editor. Control-C, Control-V. So that's a thing. Let's lay out a rough shape for our submarine. It's not the best shape in the universe, but it is a shape. Let's grab this and put it over here. Let's tighten that up a little bit. Okay, so having grabbed hull, we now have a basic shape. Now, does that shape line up? Well, I don't know. Let's use our filter to find ourselves a wall. Now, you'll see immediately, you'll get a lot of background images that are back wall and names, and back and wall and names. But the thing you're looking for, vanilla, is one of these, or the cabled variants or rect variants thereof, however you want it to look. These are the physical dividers between areas of the ship. These have collision physics. These are the bits you weld and repair when the submarine is damaged. Once again, Control-V works with the selected object. Control-Copy, Control-Paste. Now, I'm doing this separately, each chunk, because that's how I want to do this. You don't necessarily need to follow the same procedure for design operations. You can. Okay, there's all my horizontals. Let's go with some verticals. Now, there are a number of things that affect your design philosophy for a submarine that are quite important. As you build, you should consider whether or not you want it to be, as I'm doing here, an interior frame and then exterior lines. Because the next most important part of your submarine is here in this tab, structure. In here, all of these bits. Which if we remove my filtered search, you get all of your shaping pieces for fins and the like. You can press the delete key to remove things like that you have selected. You don't need the caps or joining pieces, technically. Let's go ahead and scroll down to structure exterior shuttle pieces. If you're making, say, a small respawn shuttle, it is recommended that you use these. And it lets you get much more exotic shapes. There you go. Exterior submarine wall parts. These are the bits that are actually... I look like I belong on the outside of a submarine. Now these parts serve a variety of purposes. But mainly I use them as exterior ablative armor. That's what I talk about when I talk about deep diver hull on a submarine. Deep diver hulls are hulls with a double layer, an interior wall and an exterior shell. If you are doing a lower level submarine, it is recommended that you use this. Single thickness. Because the rigmarole of repairing an exterior hull adds to the complexity of a submarine. We're going to do this, and we're going to do one of these. There we go. Give it a flip. Spin her about. We can use this to affect our sprite depth. I want the exterior hull as high as it will go. Let's find ourselves a nose cap. We're going to go over here and go scale and scale it right down. Now, you will notice that on these curved pieces, the collision, the white box, does not line up with the image. The actual physical collision of the object is that white box. So that is important to keep in mind when you're constructing things. For instance, I could go like that. See, and give this forward compartment a little more room. So, it is important to note that when building a submarine, try to line up floors like so. Because an important thing will happen later that I'll show you. Let's go ahead. Now, you don't need specifically to line these edges up exactly, but in certain scenarios, I find it gratifying to do so. Let's go ahead and drag our sprite depth up to the very top, and we can conceal that join there. So let's grab a gentle slope here. Too sharp. Better. So, we've gotten that done. Let's try one of these. Nope, let's just use another one of those. Those don't line up properly, so let's shift that all over just a little bit. I can't help it, even if I do want that to be... Okay. I'm going to go for installing one of these prefabs, an auto hatch, that because of the way it is wired with a motion sensor and its logic, uh-oh, it's too small. Oh no, whatever will I do? Well, yeah, just move it. Let's say I want, where do I want this hatch? Do I want it further back? Right here? Let's go with right here. I'm holding shift to do the small adjustments, by the way. If you hold the shift key while you're clicking and dragging an object around, it gives you much finer control over its placement. There we have a hatch up. Now, to dock to a station, you have to have an upward-facing docking hatch. Period. Must. So in order to dock with any station, you're going to need at least one upwards docking hatch. Now, I recommend, to be able to get in and out of said places, a ladder. A ladder that goes all the way down into the area you're trying to use. Now let's look for door. Now that gives us airlock doors, automatically configured to use a double button configuration. Not great, but not horrible. I'm going to use it anyway, since this is a let's figure out how to do the things demonstration. Come on, hold the cursor there, and that gives you the button. Wiring mode is that button right there. You click it, and it gives you wiring. Now you see what it's doing there? I have this area over 2 doors. This door is now complaining. This gap will do nothing because both sides of this gap are inside the same hull. If you want water and oxygen to flow through the gap, or a door to block water oxygen flow, it must be placed between 2 hulls. So that tells me I need to take this hull and shrink it. So it's just that area that will be 1 hull. Now I also need to grab it and bring it up like that. So that's ready. Now let's get another hull and fill in that space here before we do anything else. Because remember, anything that's not inside a hull is technically outside the submarine. Let's go back to our hatch. I'm going to again use a provided auto hatch blueprint to make transitions between different areas of the ship easier. Let's again grab a ladder. Roughly in the middle of said hatch. Make sure it goes all the way down. Now it doesn't have to go all the way up, but it does have to go high enough for a character to be able to climb up it and get off. Platform ensures that the second they let go of that ladder and the hatch is still open, they don't fall right through the hatch they just crawled out of. So now we need some more doors. Auto door. The provided auto door schematic is quite useful. I suggest, if it is your first time building a submarine, to use it, because it is quite handy to have doors that automatically close after a given period of time, and or lack of detection of motion. So now we have that compartment done. Let's go down here and do it again. Oh, it's too small down here. I want this area to be big enough to actually have a full walking compartment. Well, that's let's just select everything and drag it down a little bit. Let's go 2 ticks just to ensure that we get everything covered just the way we want, and we can take our hulls and expand them again just by dragging them up like so. Now that that's done, grab our auto door again and go, oh, it's the perfect size. Done. Bam. Auto door. Auto door. You can rewire these doors as needed for other things, etc., etc. So, we now have the basic shell of a submarine. We want spawn points. Where does my crew appear on said submarine? Where do they appear? We've got 3 spawn points. Now, technically, this is now a submarine. I'm going to do this because it's easier to do it now. So, we now have our submarine with things in and the ability to spawn people into existence with a hull and an outside the hull. We're going to generate waypoints. Voila. So, the configuration of this submarine is such that needs to be deleted there. So, these are the waypoints by which your AI will use to navigate, and you will get, building a custom submarine, invariably, you will get errors like that. Where I need to drag that up a little bit higher and a little bit further back. Give me the large vertical. Let's pull it all the way back to here. Any waypoint that you find that goes inside a collision box is a no-no. Or is too close to a collision box like that, that needs to be moved out. That's not going to work. You can click on a waypoint and do that to connect them. Hold space down while selecting a waypoint and then left click on the next waypoint you want to connect it to, and done. I want to grab that and move it up there. I want these over here. The auto nav meshing can be a bit finicky. But the AI would technically now be able to navigate this space relatively easily. I say relatively. The AI's never been great at navigating, but it does the job. So, we can now go, hey, I don't need to see waypoints or spawn points anymore. We already know where those are, and we don't need to fuck with them. If we change any of this information, where doors are placed, where ladders are placed, where hatches are placed, we now need to recalculate the nav points. That is a must. Anytime you make any change to the submarine's layout at all, for doors, ladders, hatches, rooms, hulls, regenerate your nav points, trim it for extraneous and errors, and then save. So, we have our structure. Now comes the decorative. Just to give us some, something to look at behind the submarine. Otherwise, we're basically in a submarine made of glass. Let's go ahead and save this here. Let's call this Rocky 1. Create the preview image. Description, NA. Well, tiny exopod sub. Scout tier 1. Recommended 2 to 3. Save. So, I'm going to go ahead and do one of these. I'm going to make this back room. I'm doing something a little odd, is I'm making a standing door entrance to a ballast tank. I know, heresy. A vertical entrance to a ballast tank? Madness. So, I now have a pump. Really, any pump could be used for a ballast tank, but there it is. So now we also need an engine. So let's put that, say, there. Disable propeller damage. It doesn't actually do anything. Propeller damage was apparently disabled by the devs at some point. I don't know how or when that happened, but it's a thing, apparently. So there's our engine. Let's go with a power source. Let's give ourselves a reactor. I have a bunch of alternative power sources available. So let's grab a little diesel generator. Yeah, a little diesel boy. You know what? Let's put it in the forward compartment, the very front. Now, next we're going to need some junction panels. 1, 2, 3, 4. Just as a minimum. Next, we're going to need a navigation terminal. Either the normal variant or the shuttle variant, doesn't matter which, as long as it's one of the functional variants. And you know what? I am going to use the shuttle variant because I can. So, we now have power, distribution for power, where am I going, how fast am I getting there, and am I sinking? Let's wire these up. Let's follow this chain here. I use red wire for power visually because I feel that that makes the most sense internally for me. The red wires are spicy wires. Now, every connection pin in Barotrauma can only have a maximum of 5 connections. 5 connections, period. Whether those connections are in or out does not matter for the most part. Now, I'm going to take this wire here and run it to this one, connect it to that. I'm going to connect this wire here, connect it to that, and then so on and so forth. I am slowly expanding the power available. Now, I can connect any of the powered objects in my submarine to these panels at that connection pin, and it will receive power from the main engine. Now, there are people who have been telling me that you should have a battery between your main engine and your junction panels. That is a matter of opinion, because batteries always output the exact voltage requested, I should say. So they react as quickly as possible to power demand. Submarine power sources do not, which allows you to overvolt machinery, such as your engine and your pumps, allowing them to operate faster. But overvoltage does add damage to your equipment faster, so you can exchange equipment wear and tear for increased performance. Now, one of the other things your crew is going to need to survive is going to be air. Without air, your crew will quickly die or revert to being a set of, suit-based organisms. So we'll put the oxygen right here next to the engine. Now, the oxygen generator there requires vents to operate. There are 2 kinds of vents, a vent and a loose vent. A loose vent has an inventory slot. A normal vent does not. I try to allow and encourage trader play by making all air vents the loose air vent kind. So, there we have air vents. Now, important later, and worth mentioning now, certain objects require linking. For instance, this oxygen generator here will make oxygen, and it will refill bottles placed inside it. But I've placed this oxygen generator and it now won't do anything with these vents. Well, why? I've got oxygen vents and an oxygen generator. Why am I dying of oxygen deprivation? Well, it's not linked. You hold space, you select the generator, hold space, and click on the vent you want it to be linked to. That will provide the room that vent is in with oxygen. Now, what about weapons, I hear you say? Well, weapons have a loader that needs to be linked to the weapon it is loading, or it does nothing. Same goes for a periscope. Now, a periscope, you need to wire up. Position out goes to position in. Trigger out goes to trigger in. Voila! Ah, but you saw that. Guns cannot just be fed directly off of the power network or standard batteries. Guns must be fed by a capacitor. Power out. Power in. And a number of equipment require a power in, like your navigation terminal. And your ballast pump. I am going to include in each of these rooms a bilge pump. And I'm going to compact this one slightly, so I can fit it in that airlock there. Technically, I don't need that, because when that is closed, it will be pumped by this. So I don't actually need that, because when you push that and that allows you through, this will keep this room empty of water, and that one when it is staged correctly. Okay, so progress. Now those also need power. Occurs to me I should probably just do that instead of going all the way to the ground. You begin to see how a submarine can very quickly, unless well planned and anticipated, can run out of junction panels very, very quickly. point of adding additional equipment can be quite a challenge. So, you might wonder why I've now hooked all of this up and I don't really need this many panels. Well, we do. If we want a battery backup. Oop, I almost forgot. Come on, gimme. Do the thing. There we go. So, that setup right there is now a lever that will toggle the in or out flow of electricity to this battery. So this battery will either be having power flow in or power flow out. Avoiding those whole eternally self-charging battery loops that people get into when they just plug both ends of a battery into the same power grid and wonder why everything is going wrong. Because people do that. They play EK Dockyard enabled or utility enabled. They place batteries. They hook both ends of the battery straight into the power network and wonder why everything is frying itself. So, yes, now we now have a battery backup. Which, if you're really, really nice, you put up here for the captain to use. Now, let's say I want a set of standard supplies in one of these containers. Let's go with a, here we go, plasma cutter, welder with fuel. Let's grab ourselves an oxy tank. Stack of bandages. Some blood. Screwdriver. And a wrench. Let's finish setting up this docking hatch. Toggle state is the thing you want to use for docking and undocking. You route it over here, you bring it down to the panel, and you go to the toggle docking pin. Voila. Now for our control runs from the navigation panel here, we want Control X out. X is our engine. Set force. Set target level is our Y. When running a wire, you can hold Control and click to create a waypoint in that wire. That's done. Now, let's try. I have all of this extra stuff in purple that's added by other mods. Because, you know, I do. I like mods. Okay, so, I mean, for the most part, this is relatively done. Let's grab an extinguisher. You never know when you're going to need a good fire extinguisher. Oh my, this has left us with not a lot of room for storage, has it? That indeed it has. Let's put it there between those two. Now, I'm going to do a thing down here. Take the scale on this down. And I'm going to make it almost invisible. You can't see the object. And I'm going to go look for crates. Okay, maybe not crates. Let's try looking through our decorative objects. Ah, here we go. Boxes and piles of boxes. So, now, this is not a shrunken large steel cabinet. It is now a pile of boxes on the floor in which the crew are keeping the things, but it is still contained, artfully hidden behind some decorative objects to make it look as if it belongs just a little bit better. We can do the same outside. We can stick a... Let's grab something here. Like this. Medium steel cabinet. Perfect. Let's Scale you down like so. And make you invisible, but you are still accessible. Let's look at the decoratives real quick. I want this to look as if it still has a ways to go. There it is. Mining machine. Scale it down slightly and do that. Gives the appearance of sliding into the next room. Let's grab the backgrounds for the rest of our rooms, just so that we have those. Let's make sure that's empty. Let's go to some backgrounds like so. Generic metal backgrounds. Nope, come on, gimme. There we go. Go ahead and change our sprite color here to something a little bit darker to hide the discrepancy between those panels. I mean, I could fix those, but that's a more advanced technique I'd rather not get into at the moment. Let's grab our window panels, because who doesn't love being able to see the ocean behind you? There we go. Now, the backgrounds are strictly decorative. They don't actually do anything. So you could make the back of the submarine look like however you wanted, and it wouldn't actually do a damn thing. But you can see now that we've taken on the look of an actual submarine. Things are plugged in and wired correctly. The NPCs could navigate if they had to. We're missing lights and lamps. I think most of them are referred to as lamps. Technically. Yes. Now these, of course, you can pick any of them you desire. They don't particularly need to be any one type. brand or kind or thing of that nature. They also need to be powered. So what's usually done is you grab a relay component of some kind. No, give me the relay. There we go. Let's do actually that one. Power relay in, power relay out. Do you remember what I said about every relay component, or every pin has a maximum of 5 connections? It starts to get really important when you're putting up lights, because you run into a staggeringly large amount of lights in a relatively small period of time. See what I mean? We've only got a few rooms, and I've already built a bunch of these lights. Now, most of that has gone pretty dang well. Wait, why can I now not open things? Why is that a thing? What? Yeah, why is it selecting also the vertical walls when I select matching items? That's not supposed to happen, so I will just manually select all of the lights I'm after here. I will tint them into the darker regimen of the blue, because I can. I'll set them to default on, and I will also tint their color into the blue, and we will turn the lighting as visible, and yes, we now have a cool blue submarine. Now, you will also notice there is something else desperately missing from this submarine. Absolutely none of this. Dive lockers, into which to keep the suits, suits, to keep your crew alive from drowning. I will give exactly 1. Oh, that's full. That's full. How about that one? Oh, it's also full. And what about this one? Oh, just about barely full. Yeah, there we go. That's every pin of these 4 junction panels used on a fairly basic submarine for lights, power, oxygen. Saved. Does not have spawn points for cargo. That's the thing we can fix. Spawn. Spawn point. Here. You. Type. Oh, not type. We want cargo. There we go. Spawn point for cargo. No sonar monitor, no status monitor. You know what? Let's be super nice. Oh, no room there. 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 There are some people who say hiding the wires is essential, but it's not really. It's all for looks at that point. All right. That is now powered. So, open, on, automatic. You, room name, ballast. Ballast. That tells the AI that this is a pump that should be on by default. If you haven't set it on by default, it can be done so there. Is wet room. Avoid staying. Is wet room. Avoid staying. Avoid staying. Avoid staying. So this will mean that your crew, any AI crew, will attempt to stay put in here, rather than in the way. So, with that, I mean, we're basically complete, but it's missing a lot of comfortable life features, as it were. Let's hit the test button and check it out. Now, you might notice that all the lights are off. There we go. What is up with my... Oh. Okay, there we go. I was wondering why I wasn't getting any sound at all when I hit the test button. So yeah, we now have a functional diesel-powered submarine with a ballast tank that we can access, even though we really shouldn't. We have a working gun. Ah. But yeah, that's a functional submarine. Let's see how fast she can go. Uh-oh. Is it not wired? Did it not wire? Did the engine never get wired? Did I forget something? Correct. The engine never got power. One and one again to let go of something you're wiring. Okay, oxygen shelf. You're getting dewired. Gonna wire the engine instead. Oxygen shelf. Is instead going to be run off of that relay. Now, you may have noticed that we set the lights to on earlier, but we keep having to come turn that button on in order to get things to light up properly. There we go. We now have velocity. So, voila! This is now a fully functioning, equipped, ready to sail submarine. You can dock. You can get in and out without going through the docking port. You can navigate. You can fire at enemies. You can go up, down, left, right. It has a power source and storage. Now, the next big thing to worry about is really, has it been set up to maintain its position correctly? Because you might be noticing that that pump isn't turning off. It is always a little on, a little off, a little on, a little off, a little on, a little off. because of a thing called relative ballast buoyancy. So, the larger your submarine, the more ballast tank it needs to manage its height. So, there's a little number you can see right here. Selected hull, total hull volume, selected hull volume. Optimal neutral ballast level is 2853. If I select an additional tank by holding control, now that would be if I was using both of these hull segments as a ballast. Our new optimal neutral ballast level is 1426. That's the percentage between empty and full it would be to maintain neutral buoyancy. But we just have one ballast tank, so it's 2853. We go to our navigation console. Here it's going to be maintaining our neutral buoyancy. We're going to scroll down until we find, yes, neutral ballast level, which was what number? 2853. So notice how that's a heck of a lot smaller than that other number. 2853. So our submarine should have a lot easier time maintaining a neutral ballast position. Create, save, test. Oh, actually, I'm going to fix that right off the bat here. Is I'm going to go, hey, that switch controlling the relay powering our lights. Let's go ahead and have that default to on. Now test again. Yeah, as the generator spins up. Lights come on. Now, you may also notice that this sub has nowhere to hold crates. It doesn't have a lot of storage. It's only got room for one diving suit. Exactly 2 lockers, a couple of supplies cabinets. This is an absolutely tiny little submarine, but it would be a tough little bastard. You want to know why? Because of the double hulls. The double hull thickness means that not only do they have 2 hull segments to get through, one of those hull segments isn't even necessary to keep the submarine alive. So this is, in theory, a tough little bastard of a sub. Now, I'm going to do something else here. Sonar transducer. Oh, come on, give me, there we go. Hey. There we go. one of the things I like to do is to grab all of my exterior, nope, hull segments here like this. Give them a slight coloration. Just a little bit, just to differentiate them. Tone down that super white appearance a little. Oh, let's grab... There we go. That looks right. Oh, where is it? It's in here somewhere. There's a safety railing of some kind. Could just use tables. Doesn't look half bad to me. There it is. Brain had to process for a second. Okay. Use transducer. Center on transducer. Has mineral scanner. Now, as far as I remember, that still doesn't work if they're all the same console. Aha! No, it is a thing. Don't mind the Lua list over here in the corner. I have Lua installed, but running it without it and the like. Yeah. I should probably adjust this turret's range of fire before I publish this. As dangerous as it is to let the turret fire at itself, I find that giving it the ability to clear the deck is more important. If you don't trust the guy on your guns, what are you doing? Now let's use this motion detector here. Perfect. All right. The discharge system as well requires a connection to a capacitor. So, what I have now created is a switch-operated, motion-triggering discharge system, which will electrify that hull anytime motion is detected. Now, I don't want it to trigger on people. Ignore dead. Ignore human. Ignore wall. Ignore pet. Save. Create. Yes. So, when that lever is on, this motion sensor is basically armed so that whenever it detects monster motion, the discharge will go off. And it will shock anything hitting the bottom of the ship. And will deplete the capacitor to do so. Now, to get the complaints of, your guns don't work, they don't have any power. Well, you have to turn it on, asshole, so that it will take power. So, the supercapacitor is now set to charge at 50% rate, because anything higher than that will cause damage, Paul. We don't want that. So, save, create, yes. Saved and created. This is now a functioning sub. Oh, I should color these lights. You. Red for discharge. Orange for charging. Out of the way. No. Now, why is it doing that? Have we wired a set state into a toggle state? We have. Discharging, charging. great. And if we're not moving, we don't actually need that much power. So running off the battery is entirely feasible. But
More coffee?
sure. Most of our power coming out of that battery is being used up by the oxygen generator, keeping us alive. Because you will have noticed that on that battery backup, there is an important number. Maximum output, 1,000. Generated amount, 5,000 oxygen. For 1,000 power. The more air we need, the more power we draw. And that single battery is enough to keep the oxygen running, and that's about it. What's 1/5 of 1,000? Let's... $200. We make that oxygen generator slightly less efficient. Now it won't take all of the power on the submarine to run. And we can show that it's less efficient by making it slightly smaller. So, I would say, I mean, that looks like we're doing pretty good in the area of submarine design there. That's a fully functional, customized submarine ready to roll. Save, create, save, yes. And main menu. Oh, I almost forgot. Submarine editor, load, Rocky 1, load.
Go,
and we're going to use the console, not Barotrauma. There is a command we can use. Barotrauma commands. Here we go. Which gives us a 4K resolution picture of our submarine, which is fucking amazing, and I love it. So let's go to Steam here, and go over to Barotrauma. Let's go to our local files. Let's slide on down here and grab wiki image. All right, here we go. Little Rocky 1. Let's grab that. throw a new layer under there. There we go. Except, oh wait, we can't publish that and use it because it's 4K. And the image for submarine previews is limited to 1 megabyte. I'll read that in a second. All right, image scale 900, go. Good enough. Export as WikiRock 1. So, I now have this glorious submarine and the wiki image of it somewhere. So, no, let's double check one more time. Everything is saved. Exit out, yes. Now you publish it so that other people can load it instead of just getting it directly from your submarines folder when they join the game. You can go over here to mods, then to publish, then to the submarine that you created. We're going to browse. We're going to go up. We're going to go find Rock 1. We're going to open that. Yep, less than 1 meg, open, no problem. We're going to tag it submarine. Rocky 1. Demo. Small. Simple. Sub. With basics. And publish. Done. Submarine from nothing to published. And what? Roughly an hour and a half. I probably could have done it a lot faster if I'd thought things through a little bit faster. But yeah, it doesn't actually take that long to make, publish, create a submarine from scratch. More advanced things or larger layouts will take longer to do. Modifying a submarine that you have already created can take next to no time, depending on the modifications you're asking for. I want it slightly longer. I want it slightly taller. I want it slightly thicker. I want this, that, the other thing. Now, there are things that a lot of people get caught up in attempting to make the perfect submarine. You have to worry about things like, well, what if I want the ballast to be underneath and have top access? Easily done. You just extend the ladder, you move things around, you shift things about a bit, and you can do it. You can get it done. The layout of your submarine is up to you. the big things, such as layout, are difficult to change later. So get the overall layout of your sub set down fairly quickly, and modifying it to accommodate other changes is relatively easy. Because if I wanted to make it taller, I could just grab that and drag it all down and make it taller. Even if I wanted to do another room, I could just grab the bottom half of that and drag it all down and have another set of rooms. I could extend the whole thing by dragging this whole front piece forward and be, leaving more room for more rooms by grabbing these bits and dragging them forward. I can just make the submarine just longer, which is typically one of the easier ways to change a submarine, is to just make it longer. Just grab the bits, drag them down a bit, and bam, done. But, yeah. These things are changeable. They are fixable. But remember, one of the more important things of if you're going to tinker with an already existing submarine or one that has already been built, if you change the layout of the submarine, the number of rooms, the size of the rooms, the positions of doors or ladders, you must regenerate your navigation waypoints, because if nothing else, the AI monsters that board your ship will use it to get around and attack you. And if they don't have navigation points to get at you, they will never be able to reach you. So you could, in theory, cheat and make yourself a unnavigable room that the monsters can't reach you in. But that's just lame. You can also do things like, oh, hey, look, see here, I could just go through and select all of my outer hull segments and go, oh, you know what? I really hate it when stuff breaks my hull, so I'm just going to give my ship 9,000 hit points. So the Rocky one is now basically immortal. It'll live forever. It's untouchable. That shell will never be penetrated. They'll come in through your hatches, but they'll never come in through your hull. Guess what? You've now eliminated something like 70% of the gameplay in Barotrauma. Think about that for a hot second. If you make your submarine invulnerable, there is no longer any danger to fighting monsters. None. Zero. Because even if you run out of ammo, you can just go, well, I'll just hide in the hatchway and shoot them from inside the sub. I'll just beat them with a crowbar from the edge of the hatch, because they can't reach me. It's the same way that permutatable block physics, sand blocking things to death, makes Minecraft rather dull when it comes to facing normal monsters, because you don't have to kill them. You just block them in a hole and drop sand on them until they die. No, I don't have to fight the monsters. I can just lock them in my airlock and turn on the flamethrowers and cook them to death, because I've made the walls and the doors invulnerable. If fighting off monsters is now boring, you've eliminated a huge chunk of the threat and the gameplay of Barotrauma. If the monsters now never have a chance of getting into your hull, of doing damage to your submarine, most of the game is just gone. Just gone. Most of the gameplay is revolving around fighting monsters, taking damage, and fixing that damage. Be it damage from flooding to equipment, be it damage to the hull itself being damaged to equipment, hull, to crew members. Your crew members, if they never leave the ship, are now eternally safe, because the hull is invulnerable. The point of playing the game has now diminished to an exercise in how long can I wait until we reach the end of the game. You could literally just ignore every enemy unless they were small enough to work their way into the hatches, sail right past any threat, and go, I don't care. Unless it's ballast floor or it's coming in through one of the hatches, I don't give a damn. And sail through 80% of the game. I should say it's more like 70. 70% of the game is fighting monsters. The rest of it is the battle of paranoia versus the other players, what they'll do, what will happen on board your sub and what won't. The paranoia of not knowing the deep. I want to say 30% of the game is the everything else aspect of the game. The battling the paranoia of the depths, the horror of ballast flora, the terrifying fear of the unknown depths of what they might hold becomes a whole hell of a lot less scary if you know your ship is invulnerable, that it will never, ever die. So think about that for a sec when you're designing your submarine, about how just slapping maximum health to a ridiculous number and making it so your submarine can never die is a bit of a silly move, because you've removed that function of gameplay. It's just gone. Because the fear of the deep now becomes the of the deep. You turn submarine exploration in this game into a chore. Something to just be completed eventually when you get around to it. Danger, the risk of loss, is the spice of life. The risk of losing everything you've worked so hard to build and make, especially in a multiplayer setting where you're working with friends to do a thing. There is no greater rush than working together and striving for a challenge. When you take that away, when you turn playing with your friends in a game that was otherwise fun into, do you want to bother killing those things? Kinda, not really. There's no point. Suddenly the whole thing starts to lose a lot of feeling, doesn't it? Suddenly the whole game starts to get a lot more boring. So no, I'm not going to save changing the hull to 9 billion. And I'm going to end my stream here. I have, in the span of 2 hours, built, published, and explained some of the reasoning behind submarines and how they're built.